A very good morning to you. It's the 3rd day of February 2018 and a beautiful Saturday morning it is. Good morning and welcome to the show. This is New Day Saturday edition. My name is Abna Tebi. We're coming to you live from the studios of TV3 here in Accra. We're also live on 3FM 92.7 and we're streaming live online around the world at 3news.com. Also on our Facebook page, TV3 Ghana. We'll be running from now till 9:50. We ask you to send in your comments, your remarks, contribution, whatever it is you have in respect of the topics I'll be outlining out very shortly to you to our WhatsApp number 050-0607-070, and we will be happy to share them with the rest of the world. Indeed, it has been a very sizzling and buzzing week of events. Quite a number of issues to look at, but we narrowed down to just about 4 of them, and we'll start off with the President's suspension of the Upper West Regional Minister. So the President on Thursday issued a suspension letter to the Upper West Regional Minister, Suleimana Al-Hassan. Now, the minister has been accused of ordering the release of some persons thought to be pro-NPP youth who reportedly besieged the Upper West Regional NADMO office to attack workers following some misunderstanding over the NPP polling station executives elections. Now, the president, following the suspension of the regional minister, directed the deputy regional minister to act pending the outcome of investigations into the alleged attacks on the Upper West Regional NADMO office. Now, the move by the president has generally been lauded. However, there are those who are questioning whether the president could have validly suspended the minister and whether the president's directive to the deputy minister to act in the stead of the substantive minister is also valid. Question is, does the president's move represent a new dawn in the fight against politically related lawlessness, otherwise known as political vigilantism in recent times? Did the president engage in an illegality when he suspended the regional minister and proceeded to instruct the deputy minister to act in the absence of the minister? We shall be looking at the matters arising from this story. Also up is a look at the government's decision or plans to build a new oil refinery at the cost of $4 billion. Now, this week, the Minister of Energy, Mr. Boakye Jarko, announced plans of the government to build another oil refinery at a cost of $4 billion US. Now, this plan, if executed, would mean that Ghana would have 2 oil refineries. In fact, the first after the Tema Oil Refinery started operations in 1963. Now, ordinarily, this should come as good news to us. However, the way and manner the TOR, or the Tema Oil Refinery, has been managed over the years makes some of us cringe at the thought of another oil refinery coming into being. You will recall that by the year 2003, TOR's debt was about 3.2 trillion old Ghana cedis. In today's terms, 320 million Ghana cedis. To pay off this debt, citizens of Ghana had to be levied, and since then, citizens are still paying the TOR recovery levy. We don't know how close or how far we are from settling that debt, but we continue to pay. Now, with the recurrent shutdowns and workers' agitation over the years, clearly the operation of TOR has been or has seen too many troubles, just like many other state-owned enterprises. Now, the history about TOR's operations so far is checkered and not necessarily hopeful. So with such a historical background, the question is, why would government want to build another oil refinery with public funds? The dust around the discussions over private sector participation in the ECG is yet to settle, and here we are talking or considering building another oil refinery with public funds to be run by government. The panel will be looking into this issue into some details. Also, the minority calls for the resignation of the Minister of Finance, Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta. And this announcement or this threat came out on Wednesday, January 31st, 2008. Now, it is these pronouncements or some pronouncements in the Shraj report that the government says the minority in Parliament is latching on to demand the minister's resignation. What are these pronouncements? We'll be looking at that in the course of the program with regards to the Shraj report. But we do know that there's some report out there that suggests that the minister is likely to go to court in respect of the Shraj report. We'll be looking at that. Then there's a cash for seat committee hearings and the report that was presented to Parliament but is yet to be debated. The 5-member bipartisan committee set up to look into the cash for seat allegations made against the Ministry of Trade and Industry had an original deadline of 24th January 2018 to present their report to Parliament. Now, this deadline was extended to the 31st of January 2018, which did not materialize. But eventually, the committee presented its report yesterday, Friday, February 2018. We are yet to know the content of that. But even before that content comes public, we are aware of some reports making the rounds suggestive of the fact that that is coming from the minority on the committee. We're asking the questions, wasn't this supposed to be a bipartisan committee that was to look into the allegations? So if that's the case, why do we have this supposed minority report on our hands to deal with? Is that really the case? The panel will be looking at this issue into some detail when we get to it. Also, we'll be looking at the return of Vice President Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia from his medical leave and matters arising. These are the topics we've lined up for discussion this morning. We'll take a break. When we come back, I will introduce to you the panelists for today's conversations and we will dig right into the topics outlined. You're watching New Day, Saturday edition. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching and listening to New Day Saturday edition live on TV3, also live on 3FM 92.7 and online at 3news.com. Also on our Facebook page, TV3 Ghana. Quickly, I would introduce the panelists for today's conversations. From my far left, we have Mr. Kojo Nsafua-Poku. He is an energy expert and a political commentator. Next to him is Ishmael Ajikumne. He is the Executive Director of the Kumasi Institute of Technology, KITE. Next, we have Mr. Kwame Jantua. He is Vice Chairperson of PIAC and also the CEO of Africa's Energy Consortium and also a member of the CPP. Last but not least, we have Mr. Kofi Ameyaw. He is a member of the NPP communications team. Good morning, gentlemen. Welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
Happy New Year. I've not seen you this year.
That's true. Happy New Year. Though it sounds belated, really belated, but that's fine. So we'll start off with the conversation about the cash for seat hearing. And this week we were expecting the report of the committee to be presented, I believe, on the 31st. That didn't happen, but yesterday we were informed that it had been presented to Parliament. It's yet to be debated, though, and we look forward to that. But even before the committee's reports or the content of the committee's reports go public, we do hear of some reports making the rounds suggestive of the fact that it's coming from the minority side of Parliament. We'll be looking at that. But I think we can start off with, and I'll start with you, Kojo. This whole process, the cash for seats, allegations on the scandal in the hearing that went into it, we know the difficulties surrounding the committee's, quest for the expatriate businesses or the business representatives to come and give their evidence and all of that. But eventually, they did have their in-camera sessions, and then there's a committee report that's supposed to be out there. But what's intriguing is the twist of events at the tail end of it, where we heard that the committee report, the presentation of it, had to be suspended because of some confusion amongst the panel members, where we are told that Dr. Dominic Ayine, for instance, had expressed a desire to actually present the minority report. Indeed, we do hear of the report that's making the rounds. What do you make of this? Because this process started out or was supposed to be a bipartisan process.
Right.
And now we are hearing of these things.
It's become the norm of the day now, with every turn in Parliament where we can't seem to have a bipartisan consensus on anything that goes through in Parliament. I think one of the things to me that seems very disturbing is that parliamentarians seems to have public interest only when they are in a minority. Okay? when the now majority were in minority, there were a lot of things they wanted done, and then now the NDC, then when majority said no, this, they will quote all sorts of standing orders and all sorts of bylaws to say that it is not necessary. Now that they are in the minority, every minute, this thing started from January 7th, when the president gave his inauguration. Immediately after that, there was a press conference by the minority to now give us, every time there's a twist and turn, we have a minority version. They want to make everything a political football, which is not healthy for our country. We should have a bipartisan consensus on wrong and is wrong, right is right. When this issue came up, there were some of the things that worried me. Look, the issue of our president sitting for dinner, for functions, and money being charged, it's practiced all over the world. It's nothing new in politics, because money is what they use to do politics. People do it when they are raising money for their campaign. People do it for a cause, where presidents sit and they do fundraising and people pay money. The proximity to the president is more. It doesn't mean that those people sitting proximity to the president, look at the list of companies that attended. You're telling me that these Lebanese who are multimillionaires in Ghana don't have access to our president? You have Tom, Dick, and Harry will get on a plane and come to Ghana, only knows a grassroots politician on Instagram or on Facebook, and he will use every power he gets to introduce that businessman to the presidency. So our businessmen, who are these Lebanese men, are rich and they are not, some of them have been here for 20, 30 years, and they have personal relationship with the presidency. So to me, I don't think the issue of the money for those things, the only thing that worried me was the money being paid to the Ministry of Trade and Industry, because then that changed the whole issue.
Which is one of the issues that the minority raised.
Which is the area that, to me, clearly you don't need to know if you know how the ministry works, you understand that the minute you now pay money into the coffers of the ministry, it now enters a different conversation. So the minority and the majority should be able to come out and condemn that, look, you got it wrong. This novelty idea is okay. We should have more of that.
But we're yet to know the content of the committee's report. I'm
just going by what the minority report, which is out now, and what they are condemning, and what we all saw in the the public hearing that they did, when they were asking the minister certain questions with regards to provisions on how the provisions for the Public Management Accounts Act. And you saw that there were certain things that the minister had a bit of difficulty answering here and there. But I mean, well and good. We'll make mistakes to learn from them. Okay, so that is well and good. But on that, I expect both sides to condemn it. Not only the minority to condemn it. And in the future, when they are in the majority, they will say,
are you preempting a situation where the committee reports will come out and not condemn the situation? Because we don't know yet.
This is what the report, they are preempting. If you read the minority report, they are telling us that the report coming out because the reason they brought out the minority report is to tell us Ghanaians that, look, the report that you are about to get is it is not a bipartisan report. It's one-sided, where our thoughts and our views have not been taken into consideration. So this is our view. And they are condemning certain things. So I'm saying that, yes, we are yet to see what the majority report or the parliamentary
committee report
itself will say. But to me, in public, when this thing came up, both MPP and NDC parliamentarians or politicians should have condemned that act where monies were paid to the ministry.
To the ministry's account. Very well. I'll move to Mr. Jantua quickly here. Now, there seems to be a trend where, for me, it's quite worrying that the mistrust between the minority and majority seems to be growing, to the extent that what started out as a bipartisan process has ended in something that, I mean, obviously is not what we had hoped for, because you have, even before the content of the committee reports come out, you have something like this in the system. Parliament is supposed to, among other things, take decisions or work based on consensus and all of that. Now, with this kind of trend, coming out so strongly, how are we to work in terms of Parliament moving forward? Because you can't build consensus when there's such high level of mistrust.
Abna, good morning to my fellow panelists. Good morning to your cherished viewers. First of all, I ask myself, is it government's responsibility to have an award? Is it their responsibility? Look at all the awards that are given, that are done throughout the different sectors. Is government part and parcel of it?
But government or agencies of state can collaborate with private sector institutions or, entities to do things.
So tell me, apart from this one, which other award government has collaborated with an institution to do? I haven't seen it in this country.
But then that doesn't mean it can't happen.
Well, the results of what we've done is what we're talking about now. The results of it is what we're talking about now. Ideally, what I would have liked to see was that the Millennium Excellence Foundation would collaborate with an association. I'm sure the expatriate community have an association where they would suggest to them that let's have this kind of an award, and they invite the president, as every other institution does. Now, to come to your question about mistrust, there's always been mistrust. Right from Nkrumah's time, that mistrust has always been present. We've gotten to a stage in our country where we should be able to do away with that and work together. This is a copy of the report, which I printed out. The first question I asked was that if the minority had issues, why didn't they discuss it with the chair and get the other members on board to include this report in the main report? What was the challenge there? Was it because the chair of the committee wasn't prepared to hear what they were saying? Was it because some of the issues that they were talking about was not highlighted or was not discussed in the main report? Because I heard, what's the gentleman's name, Mr. Ayini, indicate that he hasn't, and this was on radio yesterday, he hasn't even seen that report that the committee has put up. So, what's the use of putting this team together? Now, who set up that committee? It was the speaker. So if there are challenges, does it not go back to the speaker? Really, this report shouldn't have come out. This minority report shouldn't have come out. They should have gone back to the speaker to say that we cannot reach a consensus on this. Give us direction as to how we need to go about it, because the people of Ghana would want to see that we've come out with a document that all of us on the committee have agreed to. Why does the minority now step out and bring a report out? It doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help. And what are we trying to do? We're trying to drill down to the bottom of the issue. That's all. And if the committee brings out its report, minority brings out its report, who are we supposed to follow?
The committee is supposed to be, comprised of both sides.
Both sides.
So then it's...
So why that mistrust? What is it that has happened within the discussion of those committee members that has created this mistrust? And I would have expected that the chair of that committee would at least come out and tell us something. Because right now, we are discussing, we are all hanging. Nobody knows what has happened. Nobody knows, what went on. And I hope that in their discussions and their putting this together, they actually filmed it, so that when it gets to a point where in Parliament there's argument over the issues in that report and the issues in this report, at least they can show the discussions they had and which way it was going. I don't think that it is healthy. I don't think that, especially for Parliament as a body, to have this kind of mistrust. Is it that the people who were chosen couldn't work together from the word go? Is that what it was? So the chair, if not the speaker, the chair of the committee, let's hear something. Tell us why this thing has happened. Tell us some of the communications that you had that led to the minority wanting to bring out their own report. Anyway, the minority could have waited for the debate on it, and then on the floor of Parliament, bring some of these issues that weren't included in the report.
So the
out.
question then is, what are we to make of that report when eventually Parliament debates it and it becomes public? What are we to believe, the minority or the committee report? I mean, it sounds rather absurd that you're going to have a committee report, yes, and then even before that you have a minority report.
I think what Ghanaians would do is that they would take the committee report and they would take the minorities report and have a good look at it and see where the weight is.
But it's interesting.
What is in this one or what is in that one, and make the decisions ourselves.
But you see, the difficulty then is that one of the reasons why the minority, said they opted to present their report in dissent, quote unquote, in dissent of the committee's the committee's report, was that they stated, I think, 3 reasons. Let me read the first one. It says that it became patently clear at the end of deliberations that the majority members of the committee had made up their minds about the issues of fact and the conclusions to be drawn from the evidence adduced before the committee, that these findings and conclusions were against the overall weight of the evidence placed before the committee. So looking at this situation, it's the interpretation that whoever, as a member of the committee, is putting to the facts that are made available to them in terms of the evidence that were adduced before them by the witnesses. So then you're looking at it from different perspectives. But you would have expected that as a committee, let's build consensus around it. So now you don't have that. And the minority report clearly is making it seem like what is yet to come is fraught with some, whatever interpretations they put to it to suit a certain agenda. Mr. Jacome, let me come to you.
Just before Ishmael comes in.
Yes, quickly.
With such a situation, don't you go back to the speaker?
Well, currently,
for direction.
And this is a quagmire we find ourselves in. Now, question is, so again, whose report is to be held credible?
Okay. Abna, let me also greet my co-panelists there. For some of them, the whole year haven't met. It's strange that I've been drawn into. I don't talk politics, especially on TV.
National interest. This is national
exactly.
interest.
But the question I asked myself when these things started happening was, what were we expecting? Were we expecting you have a minority pushing for a parliamentary commission of inquiry, and then we constitute this committee, and you have the majority opposing it? Okay, but they gave in because they said they wanted to do things differently. Okay, the speaker sets up this commission. 3 of the members were
from the majority.
And 2 were from the minority. And you could see right from the beginning the trend of questioning, the line of questioning, and some of the posturing, and this was almost inevitable. So the question was that how, in their terms of reference, how were they supposed to agree on issues? Was it by consensus? If it wasn't by consensus, and they were to cast a vote, obviously one side of the house
definitely will take
exactly.
To the other
So
side, yeah.
This was bound to happen, and it was bound to happen. But I guess what Kwame is saying is, what if the speaker, and if he's respected as the speaker of the house, if he sets up a committee, if you have issues, you go back to the speaker and said, we are not agreeing, we don't accept what is coming out, what is the way forward? Or just sound Ghanaians that, look, the report that is coming out, we don't think, like the same reasons, but let's hear, because it was the speaker who asked you to do this work.
Exactly.
And you don't present this report to the speaker, but you go and hold a press conference or whatever and read what your version.
Actually put it out in the public.
For me, I think it's been a complete waste of everybody's time. It was almost inevitable when we set out this commission to say that 3 of the people were going to look. I didn't expect them to say that they were going to agree on all the issues, but it was almost certain right from the beginning that we're going to find ourselves in this situation.
So then are we saying then that clearly moving forward, we're going to be seeing these things? Because clearly, that's the kind of...
always been the case, though.
Yes, but to the extent that you have this think palpably play out there showing such serious levels of, you know, mistrust?
Okay, first and foremost, I didn't get the sense that this commission was welcomed by the majority. Okay.
But whether or not you welcomed it, you had a duty to perform.
So they did that. And thankfully, most of the people on the committee are lawyers. Okay, so it's not a question of whether they understood the law or not. They should. Technically, or if there are factual issues, there should be some consensus on that. But this is where we are. I expect to hear the next move of the Speaker of Parliament. I understand the committee's report has finally been presented. Right. So let them tell us what is in that report. And like Kwame said, let's see where the divergence started emerging. But I mean, quite frankly, Kojo said something from the beginning. When I was coming to the studio, that was exactly what I was thinking. I mean, has a minority who only a couple of months ago used to be in the majority, have they suddenly become so thorough? If we look at some of the things that we allow to go through our parliament, which have saddled us with very, very serious issues, you wonder whether they only become patriotic and they become interested in rule of law and good governance only when they are in the minority. So if I were to be, and I believe I am, a discerning voter, I will sit back and ask myself some of these questions before I decide to vote for whoever is telling me that they will be able to do. It's almost as if, I mean, soon after this minority left power, they were on radio telling us how they would have fixed the energy crisis. You see, when we were there, we were in crisis for 4 years, for God's sake. And you are suddenly telling me that you have the solutions to the problem. So I think we need to get serious. For me, I'm just looking forward to the day where we have do they call it a hung parliament or something like that?
Yes.
Where you have this the presidency, the executive, not having the majority in parliament. Ghana is going to be very, very interesting, where you have to work with them so that your policies would be. Otherwise, I can guarantee you that they will whip all their members in line, and it's going to be like this.
Very well. I mean, it's a rather unfortunate situation that's being played out currently. But to you, Kofi, clearly this is a situation where what you believe in or the reports, the choice depends on which side of the divide you're on, as it is now. Because, I mean, I am just lost for words to think that flabbergasted.
The good news is that we've been able to form a consensus here today, this morning. Unanimously, we've agreed that the minority didn't do right by the people of this country. That's a good thing. Now, moving forward, let's go into this issue. For me, clearly, the genesis of this whole commission were established by whoever sent the issue to the parliament. They had formed their opinions. They had already concluded. I have followed this issue for a while. I listened to it on radio. I watched on TV how the petitioners, if I may so to call them, made a position that this was an agenda for profiteering. This was corruption. This was extortion. So they have already formed their opinion. They have already concluded. So for me, I believe that the position of my brother over there is right, that at the end of the day, it was a pure waste of time because everybody had already formed their opinion. And just so we inform your viewers, the majority, we agreed. In fact, the defense minister, he seconded the motion that we should have a commission to look into all of these things. The position taken or the action taken by the minority by first coming out with an ad hoc report, for me, defeat the purpose of good governance, checks and balances. I don't know what they intend for us to believe in. Because at the end of the day, I believe minority is part of the nation's development. They are part of the good governance we are calling for. So instead of them to go on a trajectory that seems to me, for them to gain some political score, for people to say, okay, indeed, we said there was corruption, that people came to see the president and pay huge sums of money. For that reason, we believe that's what it is. We need to believe in our institution, regardless of our dissents. We need to form a consensus for the sake of the movement of this country. These actions by the minority, even when there's an independent body establishing a fact, for them dissenting and going back, trying to derail the effort being made by our government and the entire country holding us on ransom and just...
But clearly this wasn't an independent...
Well, for now,
really,
we were
because,
supposed to have
the
seen a bipartisan. We were supposed to have seen a bipartisan approach, but unfortunately, that's not what we are seeing, and I find that very unfortunate. It doesn't help anybody. That's what we are supposed to believe. That's what we are supposed to have. At the end of the day, we understand you have, that's the beauty of democracy, your divergent views. We understand that. But when it comes to where it matters, because the people wants to know exactly what happened, we can have a different view on this. They need to have come to a consensus. If there is a need for them to, advise the ministry that going on in future, make sure you don't do this, A or B or C. Then we can conclusively say, okay, this was not done in an attempt to extort money from people. This was not done in an attempt for people to profit from them. But in the same vein, in moving forward, you can do A, B, C, and D. At the end of the day, if you look at the report, about 30 pages or about
32 pages.
32 pages, it clearly, when I read it, I thought it was a report. I'm like, no, hold on a minute, let me look at and I realized it was an ad hoc. This piecemeal approach in solving the nation's problem, for me, does not inure to anybody's benefit. We should be able to move away from the partisan position and look at them, because clearly, if you look at what is going on in this country, people are genuinely suffering. People are genuinely not having jobs. We need to move on as a people, and the minority should believe and know, moving forward, that they are part of this agenda to create jobs. They can't just sit behind the scenes and just be creating this, actions and inaction that derail us as a people. I find this very unfortunate, and I'm happy today. We have formed a consensus this morning that this was not in the spirit of good governance and checks and balances.
Mr. Chancellor, before I go to Kojo quickly, is our partisanship getting the best of us, really? Because clearly, we cannot continue like this.
It's always got the best of us.
And yet
it's always got the best.
So what's the way out then?
But you see, it's not only the parties; it's the people. It's the people. It's the people being able to understand that the fact that you support a party doesn't mean that when something is done wrong, you should just continuously wholesale do it. We have to change our mindset where politics is concerned in this country. Partisan politics is killing this country gradually. So, for instance, when they decided to do this thing, wouldn't it have been a good idea to set out the parameters of how they were going to do it? So, one, we would charge these companies some money to be able for us to handle this. We will do X, Y, Z. Yes, we hope that those who are interested in sitting next to the president will pay it for everybody to see. It is the way it was handled that has brought all these insecurities and uncertainties in the whole thing. But looking at the partisan politics angle of the way we handle things, we should be very careful.
Quickly.
The president did something the other day, which for me I felt was unnecessary. When he was it the Amidu thing or the press?
Meet the
press. I thought from where they had gotten to now, there was no need to mention what the Mahama government had done. Compare anything. You are in power. You have the reins of power now to do what you have to do. What Mahama and Co did is gone. We can't change it. All these things feed into this kind of partisan thing you're talking about. Because those supporters of the NDC would now stand up, jump up, and say the things that they are not supposed to say. And it deepens the insecurity and mistrust within us. I hope going forward, we can have a situation where a president would come in and build that kind of consensus. Build that kind of consensus. I'll give you a typical example of one thing President Akufo-Addo did 2 weeks ago. How old is my father? 98. What is he? A staunch CPP man. President Akufo-Addo went to visit him. He visited others too who went part of his party. That shows some kind of what? Interest and bringing different factions together. I don't think any other president in the past would go and visit an MPP old guard. J.H. Mensah for one. Did Mahama do that? Did Atamils do that? Did Rollins do that?
Maybe some would say that the rivalry between the NPP and the CPP isn't as strong as that seen between the NPP and NDC. So perhaps if we see...
Isn't the rivalry?
Between the NPP and CPP?
Oh, no, and NDC and NPP.
Well, but that seemingly we can't pretend there isn't. I mean, clearly
there isn't.
There is.
Actually, there isn't a rivalry.
Is it a rivalry or misunderstanding between
whatever
the two?
it is, clearly
it's a mischief.
It's just
because
semantics,
you find when it comes to parliament, the different parties in parliament, when it comes to issues of they come together.
When it comes to issue
it
of
depends
money.
on the issue.
When it comes to issue of money,
I think really, historical antecedent has shown that it depends on the issue.
Let us stop doing partisan politics once we finish an election. Let us stop campaigning through the 4 years when we finish an election, and let us, and you know, an NDC member finds it difficult calling President Akufo-Addo his president, and vice versa. Let us stop that, because once the people have elected the president in power, he's president for everybody. However, the opposition's duty is to make sure that they hold the party in power responsible. But that responsibility that they are holding them should be one that doesn't create mischief, but helps the people understand the wrong paths that the government is taking us. I'm looking for a day where an opposition party in parliament will congratulate the government in power for doing something right. Well, it doesn't happen, and it is wrong.
We'll live to see. Kojo, quickly,
Whoa.
Is still on this minority report on the committee's work. Is there a possibility that the content in there may be the truth, but that perhaps, given the numbers, they were, if you like, bulldozed into, you know?
Well, as I was said earlier, I think we now have one report. We're going to have another report. Ghanaians, discerning Ghanaians, are going to read both reports and read in between the lines and make our own conclusions. That's one thing that, as we sit here, you see, the old have, one way or the other, moved away from that, and they watch TV and they can make their own. But it's the youth that I have a problem with. As we are sitting here, some youth will watch this program and tag each one of us who is MPP and who is NDC.
It's not just the youth who do that. I mean,
but I'm just who is the other party
who support the other party? You understand? So we've tend to generate this MPP and NDC here. And there's one, I think one of the MPP ministers tried to elaborate in the north recently that, look, we are all brothers. And he used a narration that if MPP is in power, Boniface. I'm there. Boniface, yes. You know, they are not enemies. They are not rivals. They are nothing. They are friends. Let's raise a committee to raise their car allowances. Let's see if there will be one person in parliament that would dissent against that motion to raise their car allowance. They wouldn't, knowing very well that we don't have the money to do that, but they will all support it. It is just the issue at stake, where from day one person will take an entrenched position, and no matter the evidence you bring before them, they just think that is their entrenched position, which is not healthy for Ghana.
Which brings me to the question I've been, wanting to ask all this while, that you would expect that parliamentarians, being elected members of the House or elected officials, would first feel accountable to their constituents.
Thank you.
And not the
Because
party, but we don't seem to have that. Which makes it...
Because Ghanaians refuse to understand that parliamentarians are people's representatives, so first and foremost.
Yes, so clearly we seem not to be making any headway with this entrenched position that we seem to have all the time. Let's defend what our party stands for all the time. That takes precedence over what their constituents would want, because at the end of the day, you're accountable to the constituency.
Because you could have even won your constituency by a small margin. It means that your constituency is split evenly. So some people are winning with a margin of maybe 10 or 5 in certain areas. So your constituency is evenly split between NPP and NDC. So you being a people's representative, this is the only country where parliamentarians don't do surgery. They don't even have offices in their constituency. The Monday where they're supposed to come back, most of them don't even go to their constituency. That's the problem they have now when they come to re-election. They're having problems because they don't go back to their constituency, they don't do surgeries, they don't go door to door. They only do door to door when they want us to vote for them again. Which parliamentarian do? I know a few who do very well. They are always in their community. Maybe because they live in Accra and their constituency is in Accra, so it's easier for them. But some of them that live far, sometimes it's not an excuse, but I think they should make an effort to be in touch with the constituents, understand what they also think of the deliberation in parliament. So when you come to the parliament floor, you are informed by the decision. It's only when they are asked to sit down and they will not cut up with all rage and say, I'm representing my people. Why are you shutting me down? Because you are shutting my constituency down. No, we are not. We are shutting you down, not your constituency. You don't even listen to them. That's the problem.
Quickly interject, and then I come to Ishmael.
This is strategy. You know why I say it's a strategy?
Exactly, to create a certain impression out there, even before the
2020. They would have a list of things to say. We too, they did corruption here. That is the way I see it.
Yeah, but
so they will oppose anything that is good, that is bad, that is not bad, just to make sure that at the end of the year, when we're going for elections, they have a list of things to say.
Very well. So quickly, I mean, Ishmael, I know you'd want to say something about that, but
not that.
That, yeah.
Okay.
But I wanted to look at the report itself, because I've gone through it, and there are a number of things that strike me as interesting. Now, I will make reference to a portion of it, that the Minority Report goes on to say that the report, in respect of the issue of levy and collection, they stated that if the Ministry of Trade and Industry, as it were, contends, and I'm not quoting verbatim, contends that the monies paid were not levies, because that was one of the allegations, that they levied the experts, were not levies, then they would have to provide the legal justification for the collection of the various sums of money. For if they claim that it wasn't collected by compulsion or legal authority, then there must be some other legal basis for the collection of the various sums of money by a public agency, such as the Ministry of Trade and Industry. Now, here's what I don't understand. This was the fact-finding committee, a committee that sat for a number of days. Witnesses came before them. They had every opportunity to establish whether or not the people who paid the monies were compelled to pay the monies. So now, you finish the work and you have you've presented a report. Now, you're still descending into speculations. I find that quite worrying, because the committee was a fact-finding committee. It had to establish certain things. Now, you've come back to us doubling on all these speculations. What are we to make of that?
So they didn't find all the answers. That's my simple answer. And it's even possible they probably should have asked the speaker for more time to find more. But
so then why then, exactly, so why then do you flip it or turn it and put it on the ministries?
Abner, I think we've all established the fact that when you have entrenched positions, it's very difficult to arrive at consensus. And let me make this point before I come to this one. You see, the Kojo was saying that they don't go to their constituencies. I don't think the parliamentarians have ever felt that they are so accountable to the people. I mean, because you see, we don't punish them when they go to parliament and they perform abysmally. There are some people who shouldn't even have dreamt to even go for re-elections, but these people will go and they'll still win an elections. I mean, I felt scandalized when Ebo Batinodro, after the Waryomi saga, actually went ahead and won his seat and came back to parliament, and they made him a deputy speaker of parliament. Okay, so when things like that happen and happens and nobody actually, they are still guaranteed their seats. look, they will do whatever.
A certain reinforcement in the system
exactly.
that clearly gets them.
And then Kojo said they don't visit their constituents. It's partly because when they go, it's only money that the people need from them. Nobody goes to ask the MP, what are you talking about in Parliament? They are running away from their constituencies simply because they don't come. They won't even. You can't hold a town hall meeting. The people are not interested in that. They are interested in school fees, in funeral donations. Those are the things they need. So they tend to run away. And I'm sure you heard this week, you need to spend close to about $86,000 before you can get yourself elected into Parliament in Ghana.
86,000?
Yes.
86,000 US dollars before sometimes you win the primaries. Yeah. Okay, so that's the kind of money. Why wouldn't they be corrupt? Why wouldn't they have to recoup this money back? Because some sell their properties to do that. We need to change that. And if we continue to allow them to fund their own campaigns and things like that, this is going to be perpetuated.
So clearly you are looking at issues that would help, reform the current situation where we have.
That's a long term, but democracy is just 25 years, and we are celebrating it. Or 25 years, we've done so well. So let's try. By 50 years, a lot of things would have changed.
Sarcasm?
No, it wasn't. As somebody who saw Rawlings 1 and Rawlings 2, I'm not old enough, but at least I saw Rawlings 1 and Rawlings 2. We don't want any coup d'etats. I mean, we may have our own challenges. But sometimes we relieve ourselves and all our BPs are dropping because sometimes you read and hear funny things from Parliament. People are saying things, they can't even pronounce them English and stuff like that. And we use it as comic relief. So we don't need any military. So 25 years an achievement. Sure. If you look around, let's make sure that we get into the 100s and the 200s, and there will be only 1/4 republic after we even will. But back to your question about, my question is that the adverse findings, quote and unquote, that they make in their report, I haven't read the report. Do they go against their initial complaint of extortion, corruption? Because that's what they said. Just like, I'm sure you come to the strike thing. Okay, if the strike thing, they say conflict of interest, you don't find conflict of interest, then you find something else. You start creating problems. So my question is that the real problem that the petitioners sent to the speaker, did they find anything to support that? Or they are challenging the procedures and how the report was being put together? Because now I hear forgery from this Millennium Excellence people. What are the issues? If there is another issue that has to do with procedure, that has to do with not coming to consensus, and it doesn't affect the fundamental issue, why are we doing this? Because you're going to spend another 1 week, 2 weeks. All your airtime, all your airwaves are going to be devoted to this thing, and it's going on forever and ever.
But to your question, the committee's terms of reference really was, one, to investigate the alleged levy and collection of sums of money by the Ministry of Trade and Industry from expatriate businesses during the Ghana Expatriate Business Awards in Accra. 2, to inquire whether any payments were made and received, and if so, how disbursements were effected, and whether such disbursement offended any law. 3, to investigate any related or relevant related matters. 4, to recommend appropriate measures aimed at redressing violations, if any, that may have occurred and the prevention of such violations. And lastly, to produce a report for the attention of Parliament. Now we seem to have
so my question, Abena, is that there are issues that the minority had, which led to this.
Their report.
Yes, the revised standard version that they've produced. The question is that how does that support the initial claim? Because we are not doing this because the Parliament felt that there were issues, that there were allegations that were quite serious. Okay, people, they said that we are exposing the president, we are opening the president up to corruption, because when somebody says, did they find anything in their version? You see, that's what I'll be interested in. If they didn't find that, but it has to do with how the majority didn't allow their views to come into that, and how they were dissent at the level, it's another issue that the speaker could have resolved without necessarily subjecting us to another week of minority, majority, committee reports, and it's going to dominate the airwaves for at least a week.
Right. Clearly, from what the report is saying, like I said earlier, it seems to be, a contrast, if you like, between the interpretation given by the minority of the facts as played out or as presented to them by the witnesses, and that of the, if you like, the majority, the members of the committee from the majority side. So it's like, depending on how you're looking at the situation, and obviously we know that how you look at the situation depends on which side of the divide you're on. And in any case, this, some would say that the people went into this process with their minds already made up. Yeah. So that regardless of what came up, minds are already made up. Mr. Johnson, let me go quickly to Kofi and then I...
Now let me say something to underscore what Mr. Jantua said with regards to bringing us together as a nation. I believe strongly, without fear of contradiction, and not just because I'm from MPP, but it's a fact that we have a president and a party that is committed to making sure that we work together as a people. One, you recall that the president has made a promise that we will have district assembly elections. For me, it's a way of bringing us together, because when we have that elections, people from the other side of the political aisle will come together. Some of them will win, it's a fact. Two, we also need to recall the fact that the president, for the first time, was able to call former president to come to his office.
But sorry to cut you, to go back to the thing about the election of the assembly, clearly, with the parliamentarians, they are elected, but they still don't feel that,
we will get
that they are accountable.
The point I'm trying to establish is that we will get there.
That thing would bring about a certain change.
That's what we can do. Let's keep on having the hope. That's why I'm trying to establish the fact that we have...
hope should be backed with some action.
Exactly, that's what the president is doing. He's trying to back his rhetoric with action, so that we can have the hope also with some actions. And he was able to call even political parties to his office as well. So, in fact, if you look at the fact that the ex-president JJ, how he has been very strong and harsh on any other president in the Fourth Republic. When it comes to Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo, you can see there's a consensus. So clearly, we have a president.
There's a consensus?
Oh, of course, there is. Of course.
The minority have a problem with that, really. The minority have a problem with that. But quickly.
Let me quickly chip in. Do you think it would have helped when MPP was in minority? They had now also been, now that they're in majority, certain things that minority are saying, that they were saying in minority, they will agree with them. Do you think that will also help with the consensus building in parliament? Because there's quite a number of things that... I don't know whether
we will come back to minority, but if we ever do, we will do that.
Oh, one day you will. Well, you won't come back minority
so,
one day.
But
my point is that now that you are in majority, there were things that the minority are saying that you said when you were in minority. Whilst is it that all of a sudden, MPP has taken a different stance. Now they are in power.
That's the nature of politics.
No, but it shouldn't. That's the point we are making.
That's the point I'm trying to establish. That moving forward, we have a president.
Yes, carry on.
Moving forward, we have a president who wants to kind of divorce us from... Yes, because we have a special prosecutor. Remember, this is a huge office to fight corruption, not just corruption, but one of our flagship programs or policies. And we have an NDC member, you know, being the prosecutor. So,
I think.
Let's go back to the issue of the questions. For me, clearly, the minority has taken a position already, no matter how we surgicalize this issue, trying to bring a consensus to this. They've taken an entrenched position, and that's a position they've taken right from the beginning of this particular administration.
The same could be said of the majority, really, because even the president at the Meet the Press encounter did make certain comments which people thought were quite prejudicial.
Well, it wasn't. He had every right to say that, for me, clearly, because the fact that, you know, we have a committee sitting up and investigating the matter does not mean he can make a comment at the end of the day.
Definitely. I mean, there are rules to that effect. So
you can, you know, have the argument that whether it was fair or not, but at the end of the day, he was right in making that
argument. Let me come to Mr. Johnson, because you wanted to chip in. I think under 1 minute, then we go for a break. So quickly.
Let me give my opinion in terms of the special prosecutor.
We haven't got him.
Well, he made a comment.
Yes.
That was a strategic act by government. Strategic.
To bring us together.
Wait. The strategic act was that for us to put our person there, for people to come and say we are witch-handing the NDC. We won't do that. Let your own come after you. So it was strategic. Now, with regards to the committee, Abner, looking at events, don't you think it would have been a good thing before the committee was set up, because of the entrenched positions both had, that they should have set up an independent committee instead? Wouldn't that have been better?
I mean,
Because
the same was said about the bribery allegations at the vetting, wasn't it? There was a parliamentary committee set up, nothing
going
happened,
into this committee sitting, they already had their positions.
Exactly.
And you could see from the line of questioning that those positions were entrenched. Now, Ghanaians have already made their minds up. They watched it on TV, didn't they? They saw the body language of those who were being questioned. They saw the body language of the questions that were coming. People have made their minds up as to whether it was right or whether it was wrong. The report is just coming to put the icing on the cake, to convince people's minds that yes, what we said was true or what we said wasn't true. So let's wait and see. But as I've always said, Nkusi baby is not going to go anywhere. It's just a formality we are taking through. If Public Accounts Committee has not been able to get billions of cedis that have been misappropriated, what will this one do? Well, absolutely nothing.
Sure. We need to take a break, but quickly let me bring in the comments of viewers and listeners. This one says, "Good morning. Good morning. I think the majority's hands are tied because the president has already preempted the investigation during his meet the press at the Flagstaff House when he said the trade minister did nothing wrong." That's Kosame Nima. He says, what do you expect the minority to do when you have a speaker who is always biased towards the minority? And Pola Koku says, politicians are now comfortable thinkers who have led the nation into an abyss of ambivalence and depression. Wow, that's quite deep. He says, Ghanaians should disregard the minority report. They are interested party in this case. The state established a committee to investigate the matter. We need to wait for the committee's reports. That's Berima Sampson in UCC. He says, this one says, hi up now. I'm highly disappointed in the minority. They are behaving like Odinga of Kenya. They should be serious, Charles. In Accra, the minority in parliament are completely a waste. If a committee has been set up and is yet to submit their report, why are you in a haste to come out with your own report just to incite the public in your favor? That's Augustine Adon in Koko. Musa Abatwa in Kumasi says, Abna, you don't need to be told by the ad hoc committee that nothing untoward happened. We all watched proceedings on TV and are well informed to draw our conclusions. How do you finalize the report without the input of minority? In fact, extortion of money took place in an indictment, and it's an indictment to government. If this is how President Akufo-Addo is fighting corruption, then we are doomed. Good morning to you, Abna, and your panelists. I get worried when you spend time with these expectorate money issues. Did Ghana lose money? A big no. I would be even more happy if they do more of this quarterly and the money given to the organizers for development such as schools, boreholes, and chip compounds after so-called monies have, I'm not quite sure, I don't quite get the end, but thank you, Joe Nyamin Takwari. I'll take the last of the messages here. Good morning, Abna. Please, who is the NDC? Who is the NDC representative on your show today? Anyways, unfortunately, we didn't get an NDC rep. We reached out to them though, but we didn't get a representative. So we don't have any represented here unless you draw your own. I don't know. But why did you decide not to involve NDC? That's the question. But I think my answer there should address your question. We'll take a break at this point. When we come back, we move on into other topics lined up for today's conversations. We'll see you shortly. Welcome back. This is New Day Saturday edition. We're live on TV3, also live on 3FM 92.7 and live around the world online at 3news.com. Also on our Facebook page, TV3 Ghana. Just before the break, we wrapped up on the discussion looking at the Cash for Seeds Committee report and the minority report that is making the rounds. We will be looking next at the government's plans to build another oil refinery to cost as some $4 billion United States dollars. But before that, I'll take some messages and then we go back to the panel. This one is coming in from Amadou Abukari in Tamil. It says the writer of this minority report said on, he says, Joy FM Top Stories and City and Witness News yesterday that he made every effort to meet the chairman of the committee, but to no avail. That he even sent the reports to the chairman of the committee to incorporate into the reports, but he doesn't know the content of the reports that was laid in Parliament as he was speaking. Please tell the NPP to use those monies to pay the nurses' allowance they promised Ghanaians. They claim they paid them, but most of them went to check and realized nothing was paid. Good morning, TV3. Ask your panelists if they feel the minority report is a waste of time. I think, well, that has come through. Wasn't the committee to come out with one report, and why did the chairman of the committee refuse to add the minorities' inputs into the committee's report? The NPP should give us a break in this country. Good morning, Abner and your panel. Please, if the NPP and Ghanaians are to be listening to NDC with their needless and unnecessary allegations, Ghana will not move forward. They started with the energy minister's bribery issue, deputy chiefs of staff, now cash for seats, and you're asking what is their stand. Okay, George Kwarting Adenta says lawlessness and shameful minority. You sat in a committee but chose to have a separate report to that of the committee based on your party's stance. By the way, if the NDC had the courage to write similar reports on Munta Kachinchinga, Woyome 419, Sada debacle, and the fraudulent claims by fraudulent contractors, Ghana will be in a better place today. That's George Kwarting Nadenta. I think we can pull the brakes on the messages here and return to the panel. We're looking at the plans to build a new oil refinery at the cost of $4 billion US. I will start. We have 3 energy experts in the house, so today this is going to be something else. I'll start with Mr. Jantua.
Oh, really?
Yes. Now
exactly. So you get an input, and if you have to bash it, we bash it.
Okay. So, TOR over the years, we know how it's struggled. Lots of issues, various shutdowns. Issues got to do with, the operations, policy changes. Are we importing already refined crude? Are we going to refine here? All of those things have come up in the past. I mean, the question then is, given all that, checkered history, if you like, why would government be considering, another oil refinery to be built by, government, run by government with public funds?
Abner, let me start by the quotation from the energy minister during the MPA colloquium. He said, the government's vision for the downstream sector is to make Ghana the hub for quality refined petroleum products for the West African sub-region through the expansion and improvement of existing infrastructure that ensures the delivery of competitive priced products. So, this whole refinery thing is supposed to be situated in the hub concept. In terms of the construction of the refinery, he also indicated that it is private sector led.
Okay.
Now, if it's private sector led, does it mean that the whole cost of it and the financial monies that are required for it is coming only from the private sector?
And the management of it?
And the management of it is a private sector thing. We need clarity on that. My major problem, my major challenge with this whole concept is, where is the feedstock coming from? Is the feedstock coming from our reserves? Is the feedstock coming from other West African countries? And if we're going to build a refinery, 1,500,000 barrels a day.
1,000. Yes,
150,000 barrels a day. Have we gone, and if we're going by the concept of export-led, have we gone to these neighboring countries to see whether they are interested in bringing their crude for us to refine? Because I know that Equatorial Guinea, maybe Ishmael would correct me if I'm wrong, Equatorial Guinea is also building a huge refinery. Dangote is also building in Nigeria. We've got to get to a place in West Africa where we are not replicating everything that all other countries are doing. Now,
and definitely other factors would need to come in for people
quite
to,
a lot of factors will
decide
come in. Yes,
to come
quite
to
a lot
Ghana,
of factors
or
will come in. Now, the location for the situation of this is the Western region. The energy minister has said that we would gradually ease out the old Tor, which becomes now a tank farm for the new Tor, because the old Tor currently is doing only 20,000 barrels, and even if it's to ramp up, will do 80,000 barrels. So, you're talking about using Old Akosombo as a tank farm for the new one. What about the transportation? Does it make sense?
from Tema to
to what do you call it, to
the Western region.
the Western region? Does it make sense? Have we actually looked at the strategic position of our oil industry? Why Western region? Because the activity map of our offshore basin stretches from Axim to Keta. And then you have the whole Voltaire Basin. If it so happens that in this whole Voltaire Basin, we find hydrocarbons, and within the other basins, Sopon, Accra, Keta basins, we also find oil there, how are you going to do the transportation? Right now, we are even talking about a Tuabo. We would probably need a new gas infrastructure for Accra, Keta basin if we find huge deposits of gas there. And you are telling us that we are going to transport, use
that as a tank farm.
Yeah, use it as a tank farm to transport, what do you call it? The problems with Tor has got to do with management and leadership. Those are the major problems. And I don't see why we should mothball it just to build a new one. I think we have to, at the present moment, look at solving the top problems once and for all, so that it becomes a standby refinery. And even, can we not expand Tor? Is it not possible to expand Tor? If it's possible to expand Tor, would we need $4 billion to do that? Now, looking at who is going to handle, what private sector company is going to, are they going to be indigenous Ghanaian companies that are going to build this thing? Or are we going to get international refineries coming in to build this for themselves, so that it becomes an extension of whatever company they have out there in Ghana here? So for me, I think we should take things step by step. First is Tor, because the workers of Tor, I heard over the radio, are a bit confused as to what is happening. A bit confused. I think an institution, maybe Ishmael can remind me of that institution if he read the article.
IES.
IES in their report actually pinpointed the fact that there was a lot of factionalism going in there, vindictiveness and all. Those are the issues we should look at.
About the leadership challenges.
Exactly. The leadership challenges, the management challenges. Half equipment you can always add on. You can always add on. You can always make sure that Tor has the requisite type of equipment to handle some of the things. Yes, it could be expanded to a certain capacity, but it doesn't mean you should mothball it. What if challenges are faced with this new one? And we're talking about what? The next 2 to 3 years? Is it going to be a flat pack refinery we are building, where you come and you put the refinery together? Or are we going to build it from scratch? And will it take 3 to 4 years to do?
You've asked questions. Now let me put it to Kofi. Yes. All these questions. So why the decision to, if you like, not enhance or improve upon Tor, but try to, create another one, even though it's going to be private-led?
You see, we made a promise to the good people of this country, among the 5-point plan we gave, that we are going to industrialize this economy. And we all know the backbone of industrialization is energy. So it's very important that we embark on steps that will ensure it will expand our energy hub, so as it were. So what this government is doing is take that necessary steps to ensure we bring more what we already have. I do welcome the suggestions and the concerns, legitimate ones, of course, raised by the experts. And we also do know that every policy will have its challenges. So moving forward, we will consensuously come together and accept these concerns being raised by these experts so that we will do better. What I do know is
but
that
when government says between within the next, is it 2 to 3 years or 3 to 4 years? And clearly some planning may have gone into it. So what were those considerations that were?
Well, of course, that does not also mean our considerations are limited or restricted. We will continue to, even when we set up the place, we will still need the considerations. We will still need some challenges being addressed. Of course, like I've said, no policy or nothing is complete or perfect. We will do better as we go forward. But what I do know, and as a Ghanaian, and as anybody who is watching us today, what their concern will be and is the fact that it will be able to create more jobs. We'll be able to support the existing businesses that we do have. We want to embark on a huge industrialization agenda. We will need railway. We will need certain industries or factories that will require the use of energy, heavy use of energy. So for me, the government position is to ensure that in the course of making sure Ghana becomes a better place, we move away from heavily dependence on our forest exchange earning on timber, cocoa in its raw state, to becoming a country that can manufacture things that will be able to have a finished product, that will be able to create more jobs. So that is exactly what we are attempting to do. And I believe the concerns raised by Mr. Jantua is fair. What is happening to toll?
Exactly, because we are still paying the toll recovery levy, for instance. True. For how many years?
So many years.
We don't know whether or not we are exactly where we are on that, and for me that's why when I heard this, of course, to hear that it's going to be private sector led, there's some comfort there, but otherwise it still is problematic to see TOR in its current state and trying to replicate it, if you like. That's quite scary.
Well, we are doing this concurrently. We are managing TOR. Mr. Isaac Osei is doing well. He intends to expand the capacity, which is now 20,000 to 120,000. He's bringing more investors. That does not mean we cannot do something different or something akin. We can say, okay, because we have TOR, we should concentrate all our energy in solving TOR's problem. When we can, and more so, it's private-led. So let the private businesses do their thing, whilst government also try to manage and fix the problems with regards to TOR. So, yeah, I am happy as a Ghanaian first that we have a government that will ensure that they will do something to support existing business. They will do something that will create jobs, and the government that is delivering on its promises.
Very well.
Just before
quickly, and I go to the left side.
One point I forgot to mention. So you are creating a refinery. The BDCs, they hire a lot of people. What happens to them? Because if you're creating a refinery that is going to be producing 150,000 barrels a day, you wouldn't need to import. What happens to the BDCs? Because really, what I would have suggested be done is that any refinery that is built should be looked at as an offshore refinery, whereby it's the BDCs they sell to, and the BDCs now supply the OMCs. Otherwise, you're taking a whole chunk of people who are in employment, and yours is to create jobs. You're taking a whole chunk out of the system. What happens to them?
There'll be agitation. Yes.
So what if TOR is also expanded to, say, producing about 160 capacity or 120? Would that also not take away jobs from the PDC?
No, but it should be an offshore facility. It should be a tooling facility type, where the BDCs would be the only ones who can now buy and bring in to serve the OMCs. At the present moment, OMCs have BDC licenses.
Let me have Kojo quickly. Yes,
what Mr. Jantua just said. Even if there is a refinery in Ghana, the same way the BDCs buy ex-refinery in Europe, the same way they will buy from refinery in Ghana.
So the case is, it's here.
Yes. So I'm saying that the BDC will not lose anybody from employment because he still buys from the refinery in Ghana.
Anyway,
it's not the OMC. We will not shift the BDC out of the way.
But the thing is, if the refinery is going to be private-led,
yes,
it's up to the owners of that refinery to agree.
No. The structure is that the BDCs are the one licensed to buy the fuel from the refinery. So their job is to, instead of them buying it in Amsterdam, they will now buy it from a refinery in Ghana.
Yes.
So the BDCs will still be there. So we are not going to take out the BDCs.
So the BDCs are not threatened
no, they are not threatened by the fact that it's a refinery in Ghana.
At the present moment, they are threatened.
No, but the only thing that's going to happen is that there are exorbitant prices that they make on the importation will be reduced, because now
that'll be good for the people.
It's good for us. So basically, for me, I don't have no cry for the BDCs, but let me deal with this properly. You know what? I want to talk about this in twofold. One is to give a little advice to politicians and the government. We should stop using platforms to announce policies that we've not done any homework on. And this government is becoming known for that.
Oh, but they said they have.
No, the minister said
they've sent people abroad. They've sent people abroad and all that.
Another part of if you read another part of it, he says there's a committee that's been set up to look into it. Look.
So they make announcements
yes,
prematurely.
They make announcements only for you to go and find out that it is now a top-heading announcement. Now the people at the bottom part are now running to catch up with the announcement. And I can name a few things that in the past couple of months I've had problems with. Because then the next minute, every radio station is calling me, asking me, do you think it's doable? Is it possible? And I'm not a government spokesperson. And when you say no, it's not, people now have a view that he's bastardizing the government. But because I don't use the word possible, I use feasible. Is it feasible? Government in power can do a lot. So yes, government in power can do a lot of things that is possible. But is it feasible? The people that the so-called committee, I know 3 of them. I have been on my own, being as my usual ways, trying to get people to come to the country to do a similar venture. Since 2003, during especially J. Kufuor's time, he tried to do this export-led or refinery. That policy has been in the ministry since then, but it wasn't successful. Why? We did a roadshow. Some of us went to New York. The president, America State Tillerson, when then he was VP of ExxonMobil. We spoke to him on phone. We've done extensive talk with people who we thought could invest in Ghana to build refinery. But they will tell you that the maths does not support the investment. Okay? What they will tell you is that in the Pacific Rim, you know, with the expansion of China and Asia, there was a lot of refineries that were built. Now, if they move 1 liter of refinery from the Pacific Rim to Ghana, it's cheaper than if they build 100,000 barrels a day refinery in Ghana. So why would they build a refinery in Ghana? So government trying to now kick back and tell us that it is private-led. Look, since 2003, we've tried this government-led thing. It did not work. If government really, truly believes that it wants to build refinery in Ghana, we should go the South Korean way, where South Korea in 1962 passed an act that we don't have crude oil, but we are going to develop refineries with our own money, borrowed or whatever. Then from that, we will now become an export orientation. South Korea did that, and today they export to most part of the world.
That was the reason why Akosua Atoll was
yes,
built.
But the point is that there are things that are on the ground that make this project feasible. The minister, if he had cared to listen to any of those, would not make this announcement. Because one, it is not even a Tor matter. It is a Tor and GMPC matter. Because why do you need GMPC? GMPC are the ones that has our reserves as Ghana. Like you mentioned, feedstock. Okay? The first question any investor asks you is that, am I going to get the Ghana oil at a discount?
Yes.
Because without giving the Ghana oil to the investor at a discount, this whole project doesn't make
competitive.
Sense. It doesn't make sense. Because refinery, the margins are very small. So the only reason somebody will sink $4 billion in Ghana is if GMPC is involved. And GMPC is at the table where an SPV has been formed. GMPC is part of the SPV where they are bringing on board the Ghana reserves, where GMPC will agree that it will be given at a discount. That is the first step to realizing this conversation. Second, manpower to do it. You want to build a 150,000 refinery in 3 years. Even your feasibility will take 3 years. So where is the manpower? If let's say magically we can pick a magic wand, put a refinery in Takoradi. Who is going to man it? Where's the manpower in Ghana to run a 150,000 refinery? We don't have. So you see, there should be a gradual and systematic approach to this problem.
But let me ask this question. I mean, this discussion about having this whole refinery thing being private-led, started some time back. I do recall that President Mahama in his 2014 State of the Nation address did talk about that. So you would imagine or expect that, indeed, we keep saying that governance is a continuum. So some work perhaps should have moved on from there. But of course, looking at the situation now, is it the case that, you know, that was abandoned, new government has come in, you're looking at it independent of what has done?
But no work was done. You see, everybody talks about it. It's in everybody's manifesto, everybody's policy. It's talked of, but no work is done. The only thing different from the minister's announcement was that the Tor expansion was to happen in Tema. But there's now a thinking that move the Tor new plant to Takoradi. That's the only thing new. But there is nothing new in this thinking of refinery in Ghana. Since 2003, we have tried it over and over and over. But the point I want to make is this.
Quickly,
it is a commitment from government. And as I speak, no matter what the minister says, they don't have that commitment. And they've not made that commitment.
But why do you say that?
Because, 4 billion. Ghana doesn't have 4 billion.
We can source it.
We can't, because the ESLA, how much did we raise? We can't.
Is that the right way to use the 4 billion
anyway? But the point
Looking
is, my brother, let's not take it ourselves. We can't.
Very well. Let me move to Ismail quickly. Can we or can we not do this?
As for can and cannot, I think I will borrow what Kojo said. It shouldn't be driven by any other thing but the economics, because this is huge investment we're talking about here. But let me backtrack a bit and then I'll come back to where this specific question. I've listened to the minister. I think we need to distinguish between, he's talking about 2 different projects. There's going to be 150,000 barrels a day, or a proposed 150,000 barrels a day facility in Tema next to the current Tor. Okay. That is supposed to meet our domestic demand, because at the moment we need about 120,000 barrels a day, our domestic consumption. And then once this project is done,
we need 120, but we're currently doing 20,000.
20,000.
Which is
so
way
that gap is being plugged by the BDCs. Okay. And then the current Tor, once this facility is ready, will be decommissioned and be turned into the tank farm. So that's in Tema. So that will be sitting next to the
150,000,
which is going to cost 4 billion. And then there is another proposed project that is going to look at private people coming in to build their own refineries. And that's where the help thing comes in. So that's predominantly for export. So let's distinguish between
Good. So in distinguishing, we still need to get this. So the plant that is going to be situated next to the existing Tor, would that be private sector led or?
It said it's going to be a public-private sector arrangement, where obviously Tor in its current stage, I don't even think anybody is going to lend money to Tor. So that's what he said, and that's what I listened and I heard the minister says.
Didn't Tor declare some dividends in some?
Well, it was
not too long ago.
Yeah, it was. It was funny. I mean, don't let us kid ourselves. So you see, those are 2 different projects, and I believe these are all at this stage policy intent. It's policy drives everything. Kojo was talking about policy. Only last week, I think they've circulated, I don't know whether you've gotten a copy of the policy, the new energy policy, and for once, they've given it to all civil society people, and if Kojo, you haven't gotten a copy, I'll send it to you. But
I haven't got a copy too.
Oh, Google yesterday sent it to
Okay, so you send it to them.
Yeah, that's the energy policy so now they want civil society and experts to comment on that. If for any reason the feedback we all going to send to them is that, look, like Kojo is saying, this thing probably will not be feasible. We've tried it before, nobody came in. They are inviting our proposals as experts to make our input into that. I think, politicians will always talk big, but let's look at what they are proposing to do and let's help them fine-tune it. If it's not going to work, as experts, let's tell them. But I'll come back to Tor. Okay, Kwame talked about we are all of a sudden we've become crazy about Tor, and Tor for the past how many years? How many barrels of crude oil? Anytime we do this stop-start thing, do you know how much it costs us? I am a Ghanaian. I would want Tor to work, but we're talking about a 1963 refinery. With all the maintenance and expansions, of course, the RCCU is relatively new. But if we want to have a refinery as a Ghana, I would go in for a state-of-the-art refinery if we can have the money. In terms of efficiency, I'm not sure Tor, even if it's working fully, will be able to churn out in terms of the product that is going to come out of Tor. It's going to be the same as if you were to be refining a brand new refinery. I've heard Tor saying that they didn't even know about what the minister is talking about, the workers of Tor. And I think they don't need to know everything.
Exactly, because
they really don't need to know what the government is thinking. At the end of the day, Tor is owned by the government. So my thinking is that I see it as a policy intent, a declaration of where the government wants to go. Let's make our input into the policy. And let's interrogate some of these big mega projects that we have in mind. Is it feasible? At the end of the day, we don't want to saddle ourselves with another public-led intervention. That the reason why Tor is where they are today is not because they didn't have engineers and managers. It's because they were consistently under recovering. And who was making them under recover? The product sells at 1 cedi. Say sell it at 50 pesos. I'll give you a direct subsidy. Okay, so if in this era where we've all bought into deregulation, where everybody knows that is the BDCs what they bring in the true cost that we're paying, Tor obviously will also sell at that price. Okay, if of course in the refining business the margins are small and it's the volumes that drive. Let's explore that. Okay, if we're going to keep Tor and expand Tor, I will always go for a brand new one that allows us to probably do things differently. But I think it's a policy intent. Let's all make our input into this policy, because for once they've sent it to us. So at least we'll be able to look at it and make our input.
But how long do you have to look into it? And
do
you have sufficient time to?
We have up to, I think, mid-February or something like that. And if you really want to comment on that, it's not a big document. So we can, and these are all objectives and intentions. Then they will translate into the strategy and hopefully see if they can go on road shows, like we just say, to see if somebody wants. At the end of the day, we don't have the money. It will have to be the private sector. Even if it's PPP, we would then probably say we have land as equity. We have this existing Tor that we can also put in as equity. We will decommission it and all that. So I think let's dream big. I would say let's dream big. Kwame talked about, so we're not going to move products up to Tema. That one will be a separate
from
project.
Tema to Takoradi.
From Takoradi.
There was one question I wanted to ask you. Reading the minister's statement and what you just defined as to there are going to be two projects, which one is the 4 billion one? Is it the Tema one or is it the Hub one?
The Tema, the 4 million, the Takoradi one, he didn't even mention.
That's what he mentions there. The 4 billion.
The 4 billion is the Takoradi one. Takoradi one, not Tema one. Yes.
4 billion for Takoradi.
Yes.
Okay. I have subsequently heard him on radio. Okay, I haven't spoken with him, but I've subsequently heard him on radio explaining. He explains that and at this stage, I think the numbers are all indicative numbers.
Which goes to Kojo's point, the announcement and all of that.
Make such announcement. You see, you used a very good word, policy intent. Yeah. But minister and presidents don't announce policy intent. No, brother. Let's let Kojo finish his submission. Like he said, there is a policy draft that has gone out to think tanks to make an input. Yeah. Okay, you now have a committee you've set up to look into the viability of it. It's all well and intended. We are not saying that we cannot build a refinery in Ghana. We can. But
looking at the feasibilities of it.
Is the way in which you go about it. Most of us have ideas where we think would help, because from past experiences, it didn't work that way. It will work this way. but don't go and announce it, because when you do, the Ghanaian thinks that, and you keep a timeline of 3 years. The Ghanaians think that we are going to build the refinery in 3 years, which is a lie.
Let me go to quickly. Yes, Kofi. Just a minute. Yes, Kofi, hold on. I'll come to you.
Sure.
But Ishmael, wrap up for me.
Let me just say this. I think the think tanks and the private sector people, we are all helping put this government on its toe. Look, if it's the way politicians talk and the way you talk. He said, you see, the politician will always want to talk about the big things and aspirations they want to have, and it excites the people. An impression. Okay, but they should be quick to add that, look, like I'm trying to explain now, that's the policy is going to go through. I can't imagine that anybody would dream about a $4 billion project and not do a proper feasibility. Where are you going to take the money from? Assuming we even have the money sitting somewhere. Is that how you want to spend our money? No, I think there will be a proper feasibility. I know,
but we can't take it for granted, though, because
nobody can. I mean, who will sit down in this country for them to do that? We won't do that. I mean, we shouldn't keep quiet for such a huge investment to go without seeing the feasibility and all of us talking about it. Talking about even the hub. I'm sure they would have done their own market assessment and realized that right next to us is Dangote, who has money to do everything, his own money, and he's building this big, huge refinery in Nigeria. So which other markets are we targeting here? All those who have to be factored in. Exactly, Equatorial Guinea, and recently the president went there and all that. I think this is the policy. It will be translated in strategies that would indicate how they even intend going. If there's a subcommittee, that subcommittee probably is developing a strategy that will go into the strategy document that comes after the policy. Right. I think let's pay attention if they've given us the opportunity. Because I will challenge you, just get the policy, and especially
you send it to him.
Yes, I'll send it to him. So that, look, let's all at this stage, don't let us wait for them to start putting measures on the ground and then we come and sit on set and we are talking about it.
But is there that scope?
They've written.
They've done, yeah. But it's one thing. Copy. It's one thing, saying bring it, but it's another thing to actually have inputs incorporated.
So you make sure that you follow through. And it's true. There are times that we've sent our inputs that it never got reflected in the final document. But look, let's do that. And you can always go on wherever and say that, look. Then you can criticize the document if some of the input, but we don't expect all our inputs to always get incorporated in the final
compromises
document.
Along the way.
Exactly.
Very well. We need to take a break. When I come back, Kofi, I'll come to you, and then Mr. Jantua. Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back. You're watching New Day Saturday Edition. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching and listening to New Day Saturday Edition. We're live on TV3, also live on 3FM 92.7 and online around the world on 3news.com, also on our Facebook page, TV3 Ghana. We'll be wrapping up on the conversation about government's plans to build a new oil refinery. But before then, I'll take some messages from our viewers and listeners. This one is coming in. It says, having listened to the minorities version of the report, 3 things run through my mind, which is 1, the majority's truth, 2, the minority's truth, and the real truth. Oh, Ghana. So yes, which one is which is which? Sir Obama from Pokwasi says, okay, that's the same one, sorry. Did money change hands? Yes. Is that the convention in organizing such programs? No. There was wrongdoing, whether or not you have minority reps on your program. Okay, now again, that wasn't intentional or deliberate. We actually reached out to the NDC, but there was a no-show from their side. Greetings to you and your crew. The hallmark of NPP is hypocrisy and arrogance. Since when did NPP just get to know that somebody's sickness is a person's confidentiality? They did worse things to former President John Atta Mills. Okay. From Mystic Inside Intawam, he says, Adwidri, he says, okay, that's, you're signing off. Okay. After 25 years of civilian rule, I can conclude that it's definitely not the way for us. Every corruption report comes out and discovers nothing. We need strong hands, people with morals, like, okay, you're saying like President Trump, a disrespectful president who will not be bowing to chiefs and renegotiate our mineral resources deals, etc., to change this country. We are just tired with these weak guys. That's John in Cantonments. Moses in WA says, I'll be happy if our leaders stopped fighting corruption in this country because they cannot fight it. All the guns used in fighting corruption are all corrupt. All the guys, you mean. Maybe the corruption will stop fighting us back if we stop fighting it. I hate to hear some things like special prosecutor because he himself is, okay, you are making wild allegations. I can't go on with that. Why? Because he is also a Ghanaian and this is Moses in WA. Abna, good morning, and good morning to you and the panelists. The incompetent minority should give us a break with their lies. They should rather settle their differences and leave the competent government to fulfill its campaign promises. That's Mashoud in Tamale. I'll take the last one here. Good morning, Abna. Your panelists are doing justice to the topics. My problem, however, is how the minority are taking taking Ghanaians for granted. I feel so sad that the only institution that we can run to for clarity on issues is now being destroyed by this greedy parliamentarians themselves. Both the executive and the judiciary, according to you, have failed as they should sit up, and that's Jerry coming in. Clearly, despondent messages coming in there, but we hope to get things better. Now, Kofi, yes, you wanted to make some comments on this?
You see, the difference between governance and the corporate world is that when you meet the shareholders, when you meet the
national level governance and corporate governance.
Yes, you meet your board of directors. You need to tell them what you have done, but in governance, you also need to tell the people your intent. It's part of that's why we have manifesto. Exactly, that's why we have manifesto. Even before you become a government, you need to tell the people what your intent are. So, but I want to say this: the country is in capable hands. We are capable of doing the impossible. We were told that we cannot do or implement the free SHS. We did it. So, Bra Kojo, be rest assured that in a spirit of inclusiveness, in a spirit of transparency, we will tell the people what our intent are, and we will include everybody to ensure, indeed, the energy hub becomes a reality and that Ghana becomes a better place for all of us.
Yes, okay.
Abna.
It is let Mr. Jantua come in.
It is one thing implementing a policy or a program, and it's another thing it being sustainable. So the fact that you say you've implemented it does not mean going down the route it will work. Show us how it will work. Show us how to make it work.
Very quickly.
What I want to say is that structured finance, which is business, is out of the realm of governance. Okay, so certain things which government, like, that's why I don't like using the word possible and impossible, but I use the word feasible. Government can always make something possible because they have ways of making things possible because it's government. But feasible is the different thing, because you see, to build something of a capex of 4 billion, it's huge. And you need the money not from government coffers, but you need it from private sector. And we, the private sector, we base our thinking on various factors. That is why I'm saying that it's possible. Let's not get around it. But the possibility of it involves a lot of commitment and decisions from government. Is government prepared to bring GMPC to the table and give us the feedstock at a discount? Is government prepared to guarantee the shortfall? If, let's say, private sector comes together and able to raise 2.6 billion, there's a 1.4 billion shortfall. Will government prepared to put up a sovereign guarantee of 1.4 billion? These are decisions that government, if they are very serious about this decision, would have to make. And as I said now, I don't see it. That is why I'm saying that let's not rush in announcing these things and giving timeline to it when the critical decisions and commitment has not been given.
But in the break, you made a good point. The point you made was that if a company is interested in coming in terms of the storage of the crude, where is it?
Yes.
If we had piped onshore and we had storage facilities and they knew the quantum of storage in there, it would probably entice others to come. So we build a refinery now. Where are we getting the feedstock from?
Kwame, Kojo made a point, and I'm not sure that's ever going to happen. GMPC cannot guarantee feedstock.
Yes, they cannot.
They have only a share of that feedstock.
No, but they can use their share to guarantee the feedstock.
Okay.
Because we always have our share of what we get.
But anyway, do we have the quantum?
Exactly.
One at a time.
Do we have the quantum?
No, one at a time. One at a time. Kojo, let us now conclude and then yes.
There's a law that if there's a refinery now,
yes,
we have first right for the crude.
The first one is about 20. Is a fraction of that. It's still about 22%, or I've forgotten exactly. But Kojo, all that I'm saying is that if we're coming in to do a refinery business, if we don't get subsidized crude, and the business is not good, then what's the point? I mean, what's the point? Then don't let us. No, Kwame, I'm saying that I trust that if you bring in the crude, you refine the crude, you should be able to be in good business. If you can't do business unless somebody gives you feedstock at a subsidized rate, then I don't think it's a good business.
No,
I would rather.
Let me clarify.
I would rather we sell the money and then Kwame Jantua's PR could monitor how the money is used, rather than sending it to Tor or a refinery and saying that I'm giving them a subsidy. If we want to take the crude from Tullow, they're going to sell us at the price where they would have sold their shipment. So, I mean, Kojo will come in and clarify,
and it's not feasible importing because when oil prices hit the roof, what happens?
Yes. So let's do this. I think, for me, we need to take a holistic view of everything that we are doing. So that's where we need to go back to what we were talking about, this long-term national development plan, which should have factored all of these. Because when we do things in piecemeal, like we're trying to do and picking one project and highlighting
we miss out the interlinkages.
We miss out the interlinkages. For example, it could be that even the refinery might not be profitable, but if we're able to do some projection and say that, well, it's going to give us A, B, C, D apart from jobs, and it's going to, the linkages are well established, it might be a case, then it's not based purely on financial analysis, but economic analysis that shows the totality of the impact of a project. Let's stop doing things in bits and pieces and have a bigger picture of everything that we are doing and situate individual projects.
We need to conclude on this, but Kojo, I'll come to you on the issue about the discount, yes, GNPC and all of that, yeah.
You see, in project finance, the money out there that you can use is 7 to 8 years money. Nobody's going to give you more than 7 to 8 years money to build a refinery because it's project finance. Government can access 15 years money for other projects which are social infrastructure. But project finance, 7 to 8 years. When you do the maths for 7 to 8 years, because of the capex, you will not be able to now buy crude at premium and pay back your money at the interest.
Which makes a discount very necessary.
It makes it necessary.
Crucial,
within the period that you are repaying the capex. That's the point. It doesn't mean that it will not be. It is, but the point is beyond that period, you need certain. That's why mostly it is government that build refineries because their own is not about the economics. Their own is about the people and the social employment that comes out of it. So within after the 7-8 years, when you've paid up your borrowed money, then you can buy your
business, real business to do things. But quickly, yes.
Just to add, at the colloquium, I asked the question that what we're trying to do, even with the hub concept, is it part and parcel of the long-term national development plan? Now, we don't know at the present moment whether government is going to execute the long-term national development plan. But in the plan, we took into consideration some of these things. So, for me, I would have felt that the government will quickly look at that plan and say, we are taking parts of it, we are taking all, so that going forward, whatever policies they have is tied in.
It's interesting you say that you don't know whether government is going to do, implement
because they haven't showed any.
So
I know the president has set a committee to look at it,
of
but
the government.
We don't know whether they
want to do it.
Yes.
There's nothing binding
there, yes.
So then why do we even waste our time putting together that report? Because it took, I remember it took a while.
It took a while.
A lot of work and a lot of money went into it. And if it's going to be left sitting on the shelves, then why did we even venture?
They can answer.
Well, anyway, that would require another 1 hour. We don't want to go into that. So let's move on. I mean, that rhetoric really. Seriously, I'm getting tired with that. Seriously, but let's go on.
It's subjective anyway.
It's subjective. It's subjective too.
I said, don't worry. 4 years. I'm not worried. 4 years will come.
And it is very subjective. But well, let's agree to disagree and move on. We're moving on to look at the suspension of the Upper Western Regional Minister, which has come in. I mean, generally it's been lauded by many, but some issues as to the constitutionality or, if you like, the appropriateness or the validity of it. And the other side also has to do with the directive for the Deputy Regional Minister to step in. That too has issues. Let me start with you, Ishmael, on this, clearly, I mean, like I said, it's been lauded, and some are looking at it as, yes, the president is now cracking the whip. He's been talking about this. He's been, making statements. He's not going to countenance these things. But now it seems he's walking the talk. The minister has been suspended pending, some investigations into the allegations of the what the youth pro NPP youth did in the Upper West region. Your perspective on this? Should it even matter, if assuming without admitting that there's some illegality to it?
Okay, so every Ghanaian is not happy about this vigilantism that is going on, and I think there's so much impunity, and sometimes it's so worrying that even soon after a president would have made a statement that we're not going to countenance this. He was in Kumasi when this Ashanti regional house, this first thing, the Delta thing that happened, and went to Asantehene and gave Asantehene assurance that it's not going to happen. The next day, where they actually went and drove the people out of court. So I think there has to be a very strong signal saying that, look, I saw last year's and all the things that the president was saying that, look, we're giving you the last warning. And I think when this happened and then some people were arrested and then somebody, we are told, instructed that they should be released, this is the consequences.
Right.
And I'm looking forward to these guys being prosecuted and not fined, but jailed properly according to the laws of the land. Unless, of course, the offenses they committed are not...
Exactly, depends on the charges that
yes. So we should allow the laws of this country to work. And I think the test case is to see what happens if somebody should repeat this. And if somebody... I wouldn't expect anybody to dare again to say that release somebody. But I think the test case will be when these things are happening in the Ashanti region. They are happening in close home where the people are... There are strongholds and things like that. I think let's see if indeed it's the beginning of full-scale implementation and allowing the laws of this country to work. I will leave it to Lawyer Kwame Jantua to talk about whether it's legal or not legal. But I've heard people saying that doesn't matter. Whether I think it's just the signal and what it sends out there that, look, stay completely out of these issues, allow the laws, because the police have always complained. They've tended to complain that, look, we are powerless because there's this
how elites would
order from above, or the so-called order from above that we don't know where above is, whether it's coming from God or something like that. But for me, I think if truly he's been he's on suspension because of interferences, then it's a very positive thing. I heard the minority leader actually applauding.
Oh, yes, he did.
But then he's a lawyer and expect him to always give it a twist, because some people will not be happy in his party that he's even appreciating the fact that this is a step in the right direction. So let's make sure that it doesn't stop here. I think that anybody who breaks the law must be dealt with. It's becoming so sickening. The president said he's embarrassed. I mean, how can you embarrass the president? They are supposed to be members of his own party who are saying that Yentiobia. I mean, that thing has to stop. Right. And you don't. If your government is in power, it doesn't mean that you should break every law. Otherwise, you can't do that. It's not. So I think that it sends a strong signal that 2008. You can't mess around. And I hope that it's repeated everywhere, and these people know that there will be nobody backing them, and when you do these things, you'll be made to face the full rigors of the law. Otherwise, we can't live in a state like this. We can't live in lawlessness.
I mean, like that. Yes, Mr. Jantua, quickly on the validity or otherwise of what the president did. I mean, even without referring to the Constitution or any other law for that matter, we do know that he who appoints fires, and for that matter can take some if you like measures which include suspension and all of that. But if they are saying he should have sacked him, which provision then would they have gone under? if the argument is that the suspension is whatever. So clearly, yes, Mr. Jamsa, your
For
views
me,
on that?
the president should also have pointed the finger at the IGP. Yes, ask me why I say that. When did the regional minister have power over the police?
He's the head of
No,
the
because,
he's
okay,
the head
so
of
with
the
this
RISEC.
one, the allegation is that he ordered the release. So he interfered with the work of the police.
Yes.
So that is quite specific.
But
Yes,
in the
but-
regions, they are head of RISEC. The Regional Security Council, the regional minister is the head.
Yeah, so does he have power over the police in the
Well,
region?
in that
No, but-
jurisdiction, he's seen as
Administratively,
the
yes.
chair. Administratively, he's seen as the head of
But
the
is
RISEC.
it not the police's responsibility to check
Yes.
these things?
Yes.
And who is supposed to tell them that you can't do your work? If the police told the regional minister, you're interfering in my job, I'm not taking your orders. I have orders from my superiors to do what I'm doing. What would have happened?
Well,
Could
maybe
the
at
regional
that- maybe
minister
at that point he
could
didn't
the
have that order.
no could the regional minister now say that police you are going against my word? Never.
So you
Never.
Mr.
And
Just a
that
quick
is
question.
that is what we are finding with all these cars that have sirens going up and down the place.
So in this case, you would have expected the president to do exactly what in respect of the IGP.
I would have expected the president to call the IGP to book that your officers are not supposed to take instructions from elected members that have been.
But they have.
But they shouldn't.
They have
do-
currently. So
Yes, but they shouldn't. It shouldn't be something that they should do. So if he's suspended, for me, I feel the suspension is right in place, pending the investigation.
But you think that the police who as it were, obliged the requests or the orders of the minister should also be brought to book?
Yes,
and
why?
by extension, the IGP.
Exactly. Extension that if anything happens in this country with regards to, let's say, president in another country has berated Ghana, do we call a junior officer? We call the ambassador to book. We call the ambassador to book. And the responsibility of the police is with the IGP. Who appointed the IGP? The president. The president has overall mandate. He should call the IGP and say, I don't understand why your members will take instructions from an elected member of this government when you have the responsibility of making sure that law and order is enforced in any part of the country. Why? And so, for me, where the police are concerned, that was a dereliction of their duty. They should have done the right thing there, and they should have stuck to their guns because they have the power. That uniform that they wear gives them the power to enforce laws. And because they didn't enforce laws, look at what happened. And not until the police can look at this vigilantism thing and take actual control of it, the political party is not going to do anything about it. This party is not going to do anything about it. If his party were going to do something about it, they would have done something about it today. But it's still going on. And I fear that going into 2020, it would also raise its head again.
So you don't see this development as a new dawn in how we deal with political vigilantism?
I'm saying that the
Doesn't
president,
it send
the
signals?
president has done well in doing what he did. But the major responsibility is on the police. Look, when this vigilantism thing happened, when it started, what did the president say? He said it's up to the police to do their work. They have that responsibility. They shouldn't wait for the president to now come and, what do you call it?
Issue statement.
Issue statement. Yes, I do agree. It's the president who put the gentleman there. So it is his take to make sure that the gentleman is doing it. But it is the police to make sure that calm, and if there's violence or anything, it is their responsibility. And so if he has put the IGP there, the responsibility is on the IGP to also sanction his people. So I would have thought that if the president didn't call the IGP should let us see what he's done with these people there. That call your officer, call the commanding officer who's in charge of the area. Why did your people do extra? Because they have a code of
Okay,
of,
so
of work.
you would have loved to see some sanctions happen within the police service.
Exactly.
Wow.
That is the only way we can get the police to do what they have to do. Right? Something very minor happened 2 days ago. Standing at the, what do you call it, traffic light, the Kakudi traffic light. The light is red. A motorbike passes the traffic light and then stops by the policeman and is having a conversation with him. Who has the power to make sure that the motorbike adheres to traffic lights.
rules.
They don't. And so I see some of these infractions that are going on. The police aren't actually executing their duty.
Okay, so
And
clearly
something
what
to be
I'm
brought
getting
to
then
book.
is you think what the president did in respect of the minister gives a certain signal in respect of, political
Exactly.
elites, if you
Exactly.
like. But then we should also see some signals within the service, the police service, to also send that message across to officers
Because
that
they-
you need not.
Exactly.
You
because
need not.
they execute the law. The law is in the palm of their hands.
Right, but let
They
me
execute
let me
it.
hear you on this argument about the constitutionality or unconstitutionality of that quickly, and then I'll go to the other two. To you.
It's not constitutional that the president
Yes.
did what he did.
I mean, it's coming up. The minority leader
And which
commended the
part of the
president,
Constitution
but
are they
then went
talking
on to
about?
say that.
What-
But
what
they
part of the
haven't.
Constitution?
They
He
haven't
cannot
made.
suspend, he should have sacked, and also the deputy minister cannot act.
when
I don't know.
when a minister is not in office, or when he's not, as the Nigerians would say, on seat, he's probably incapacitated, he's sick or whatever. Who takes over?
The deputy.
Deputy. The deputy. The fact that the deputy has been asked to come in there does not mean that the deputy has been actually put in place of the minister. It's a deputy. Are you saying that they had to bring somebody new when you haven't proven guilt against the regional minister? Let them do the
They're
investigation.
saying some other regional minister should have acted in his absence and not the deputy regional minister, which for me raises questions about the rationale for even having deputy ministers in the first place then. That if
So
the
which
substantive
so-
minister is not there, the deputy can't act.
So which
then why
regional
do we
minister,
even
which regional
have...
minister should we have given it to?
Well,
they are, you see, we tend to forget that the major work of government is in the communities, the districts, the regions. That's where the major work is. And these regional ministers are saddled with huge challenges and problems. Why do we want to add another regional minister to now go and look into another region and take over another region's problems?
But quickly,
When the deputy is there.
on this constitutionality, I mean,
don't think that is wrong.
I, in the light of Article 297, don't really get
Is
the,
that what
that
is that-
argument.
is
Because
that-
clearly,
is that where the argument comes from?
what this constitution says is that in this constitution and in any other law, the power to appoint a person to hold or to act in an office in the public service shall include the power to confirm appointments, to exercise disciplinary control over persons holding or acting in any such office, and to remove the persons from office. So I mean, based on this, I honestly don't see what.
Who quoted? I've never quoted 292.
I don't even know.
How did
I
292
don't
come
know,
up?
but I will make that reference and then we'll see what that is. But for me, 297 resolves the whole
297
matter, and
came from
I
where?
don't. No, that is what I am putting out
Oh, okay.
as backing
Okay.
any such decision to do that. 292 doesn't even speak of.
It doesn't speak of.
Yeah,
Okay.
anything
297
about
is
that. So
297.
clearly, that is it. But quickly, Kofi, and then I go to Kojo.
I'm not a constitutional lawyer, neither am I a lawyer. So, as with whether it was constitutional or valid, for me, I don't.
No, yes. So
No, I'm making a point.
question to you. Yeah.
What interests me most is the fact that, you see, these actions of party faithfuls taking the laws into their own hands, for me, is appalling, it's repugnant and unacceptable. Because, you see, when you look at the successes that have been chalked by this administration, we don't need these things. It takes away the shine. We have been able to successfully implement free SHS. We've been able to restore teacher training allowance, nurse training allowances, planting for food and jobs. I can go on and on and on. At the end of the day, we are sitting here talking about this. But I am of the opinion that the suspension, the action taken by the president to suspend the minister for harboring or preventing those people who perpetrated,
Or during their release.
yes, and it's one stone killing many birds. You see, the police have been complaining that when they do arrest people because of political interventions, they've never been able to take the necessary actions. This action by the president should tell them that, hey, you can go ahead and do your job without any political interference, regardless of whoever it is. I, the president, the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, I'm telling everybody that if you misbehave, I will fire you or I will... I believe it's just because of the rule of natural justice. That's why he has been suspended. Because at the end of the day, we need to hear from him. Because his actions clearly warrants, straight firing. But at the end of the day, I'm also happy that this is also signaling to, party faithfuls, especially those who think they can take the laws into their own hands and do whatever they think. It's a culture in the minds of the people that, it's our party in power. If I do anything at the end of the day, the minister who is there, I was eating with him, I was sleeping with him, I was helping him, so he cannot watch me going to prison. By this action, now they understand even the president will not support that. And even if the president is not going to support that, how much more the minister? So now we have an understanding. Action has been taken. And with the greatest of respect, with regards to all the unlawful acts that were committed by our party faithfuls, actions were taken, legal actions were taken. It might not be satisfactory because this issue of invisible forces in Kumasi, actions were taken.
It was a whitewash.
You see, they were not satisfactory according to other people. But I want to put it out there that there were action taken. It wasn't like, we sit there on consent. We took some action. So for me, what the president has done should tell our party faithfuls, it should tell even the minority that we will not condone these acts moving forward. As with crime, people will commit crimes anyway, but it behooves the executive to ensure that the right and the rule of law.
But Kofi, it's not only the president. It's not only the president.
I understand. I was coming there.
Your party chair, all those executives in your party should make sure that they also toe the line of the president.
They will, and they have been.
So far, they haven't.
I can tell you for a fact. Somebody like Samia Uku. He has been doing a great job. John Boadu, they've been doing a wonderful job. But at the end of the day, I am extremely happy that the president has taken this. And this is not the first time when we had the deputy minister saying something that was untoward. Actions were taken. So we have a president who will ensure that the right things have been done. And moving forward, I am of the strongest opinion that these actions and inactions by our party faithfuls will not happen. Even if it will be very, very, very minimal.
Very well. We look forward to a better day. Yes, quickly.
I want to address something that Mr. Jontua said about the police and the regional minister. You see, the chain of command in Accra is that the president and the IGP. And the IGP is the head of the police and the president is the head of the executives. That's how it is. In the region, the regional minister represents the president in the region. So he's seen as the head in that region. So he supersedes the regional court because he chairs the RISEC.
Are you saying to me that because
the Regional Security Council?
Yeah, the Regional Security Council, yes.
Are you saying to me that because he represents the president in the region, if he does something wrong, the police can't?
No, they can. The point I'm trying to make is that if the regional commander gets a call from the regional minister that release those boys, it will be difficult for him.
When he knows,
if the regional minister calls the regional commander to release people they have arrested, unless he calls Accra directly from IGP to say that, look,
but that's
this
the
is the
system we're trying to deal with,
exactly.
Right? That's the system we're trying to address.
What Kofi is saying that the IGP should have been,
Mr.
Jontua is saying that the IGP should now crack the whip on his people. Maybe what that person did not do is to call Accra and say, look, I have this problem at my hand. But whatever it is, there was somebody who heeded to the demand or order by the regional minister. That's a natural process.
And what Mr. Jontua is saying is that whoever released the people on the demand or request of the regional minister should himself suffer some sanctions.
He only followed orders. Which the police do.
But does that
if
make
the president
it right?
calls the IGP to do something,
but
the IGP will do
does that make it right?
It doesn't make it right or wrong because it's
But essentially, what Mr. Jontua is saying is until we see the whip being cracked within the service, then that culture is not changing.
Don't go and disturb the poor policeman. Crack the whip where the president have done, which is because you see. Police is a chain of command.
But that's what Mr. Jontua is talking about, the IGP, not the ordinary.
So you're telling me that, what I'm saying is that the president will crack the whip that, look, you the politician, do not interfere.
And the IGP should also crack the whip internally. That's what he's saying.
That his people should not listen to the politicians.
Kojo, let me ask a question.
Which he's the chairman of a RISEC.
Kojo, let me ask you a question. So, the IGP arrests someone who he has the evidence to show that this person has done X, Y, Z.
Yes.
The person hasn't been taken to court yet, but has arrested him. The president now calls the IGP. He says to the IGP, I hear you've got this man there, release him.
That's wrong.
Why should the president be
Why
even
should
called
he even
in the
get
first
involved?
Exactly. But
Why
my
should
point,
they involve?
is that look at the conundrum of the IGP when the president now calls
Why
him.
should, and for
But
me,
why?
That's
It's wrong.
If the
I'm not
IGP
saying it's
feels
wrong,
that,
but
if the
what I'm saying is that,
IGP, look,
let's not
we need to
bring
take a
blame.
break.
if the IGP feels that what he's done is right and the president orders him, he can say that, Mr.
Of course.
President.
We need
No,
to take a
no,
break,
I
but
will
before
not.
we do that, I will take some messages from the viewers and listeners. Says Kojo Pokumedase, the energy minister should listen to your wisdom with regards to the building of new refinery. That's Papa Kwesing Community 8. This one says the regional minister for Upper West Region should have been sacked long ago, although President Nanado he said it's selective. This should have served as a lesson to. Okay, I'm not going to carry on because you're making some wild, statements in there which I don't think is prudent for me to put on air. The government should bring our regional minister back. That's someone in Wasen. Good morning, Abna and your panelists. This government has no clue to our energy problems. They should contact the experts and stop wasting our money. That's Paulus in Cape Coast. The president should also crack the whip on the DCE. Some of them are also misbehaving, also preventing so-called civil servants to work with them. And this one says, hello, everyone on the panel. I'm a TV3 viewer from Benin Republic, and I'm by the way, coming to congratulate the step of democracy in Ghana. I do believe the achievement Ghanaians have to express themselves over their country issues is fundamental. I wish both the minority and majority to understand that critics are the only solutions for politicians to perform their actions for the well-being of all Ghanaians. Thank you so much, viewer. You didn't know that? It is from Benin. Thank you. We appreciate your text messages. We'll take a break. When we come back, we move on to the minority calling for the finance minister's resignation based on some pronouncements in the Shraj report. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching and listening to New Day Saturday edition live on TV3, also live on 3FM 92.7, and we are live online at 3news.com, also on our Facebook page, TV3 Ghana. We have just 10 minutes to wrap up on the show, so we'll quickly turn to the issue about the minority calling for the resignation of the Minister of Finance, Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta. And this has to do with the Shraj report, which to an extent exonerated the minister of any conflict of interest allegations, but went on to make some pronouncements regarding some irregularities involved in the issuance of the bond. Now we are being told that the minister is likely to head to court in respect of the Shraj report, and discussions have been centered around this. We need to do this really fast because we don't have much time. So I'll start with Kofi. Tell us, what's the way forward?
It's simple. If the minority will stop these shenanigans and innuendos, I think that will be the way forward.
Why do you call it shenanigans?
Because
there's a report by Shraj, and it's made
I'll make
certain pronouncements, and you call the minority's actions as...
Of course, the same body established that in the case of conflict of interest, of which the minority depended. In fact, the petitioner, majored, and the foundation of his petition was based on the fact that any other thing that he said with regards to whether there was a matter of transparency and all of that, it was a matter of conflict of interest. And he suggested that this whole agenda or enterprise was to inure to the benefit of the minister and his friends and family. That's what the whole petition was about. And page 136 of the Shraj report was very clear. It exonerated the minister, that he did nothing of that sort. So for me, that would have been the end of the matter. But yet again, they come back, telling us and even demanding that he should be fired or alternatively resign, or they will use some instrument in the constitution to ensure that, Seriously. But at the end of the day, when you even look at the Strad report, the cases that were cited by the report, that to the minority indicate that you should either resign or be fired and all of that, it's neither here nor there. One, potential conflict of interest. What is that? On one hand, you say, okay, there's no conflict of interest. Then on the other hand, you say potential conflict of interest. Just because the man went to Yale, he went to Columbia, he worked in Wall Street, he's known by Bloomberg, he's known by Standard & Poor, Fitch, and all of these rating companies. Because of that, he should resign as a minister. Because of that, there's a potential conflict of interest. I don't get that. I recall in 2009 to 2013, when we had Dr. Kwabena Duffuor as the Minister of Finance, with respect to the fact that he had all these businesses, financial businesses, who asked him to resign? Who said there will be a potential conflict of interest? So for me, the minority has no case. It's very unfortunate you don't have much time, but I would want to conclude that it's a pure waste of time. And we have sat here to establish that indeed this particular minority, they are not ready to give us alternatives with regards to moving forward as a people. I would have wished that the other parties will come together, especially the CPP, and the other party will come together and be a force to reckon with, because clearly the NDC, for me, they don't have a spirit to lead the country to where it must go. And at the end of the day, they will come back and accuse people for things that they have not done. So, Abina, if you want to see the finality of this issue, we need to tell the NDC to stop what they are doing, because it does not help anybody but themselves. It's something they want to do to score cheap political points, because clearly, the minister will go to court to ensure that the adverse findings that were established against him will be made known. At the end of the day, even the breaches that were said, it's not really him, but the Bank of Ghana that are supposed to take
thank
care
you very
of
much,
these issues.
Kofi.
Okay.
Like you said, we don't have much time, so I just need to move
sorry.
on to the others. Yes, Mr. Jantua, do you think this is much ado about nothing?
Well, we don't have time to really delve into it, so I would concentrate on Article 82. That's the
censure.
The censure. What does it say? It says, and I quote, 82.1, Parliament may, by resolution supported by the votes of not less than 2/3 of all the members of Parliament, pass a vote of censure on a Minister of State. Does the opposition have 2/3?
So clearly, waste of
Exactly.
time.
Does the opposition have 2/3?
They do not.
And will the governing party in power, with majority in Parliament, side with the opposition to make up those 2/3? So what are we talking
Good
about?
question. So what's the end game then? Why
So why this? Why
Waste
this?
of our time.
Because clearly it's
If you're
it's an issue about
using,
numbers.
if you're using the Bible of the country to censure the minister, and you don't have the wherewithal to use it, what is all the hullabaloo
They are,
for?
saying they
Very
are
well.
calling for a
Kofi,
secret ballot.
Let me, yes, to the two others here,
Secret
Ishmael.
ballot or no secret?
Moving
With
forward.
Secret ballot or no secret ballot?
Mr.
If
Jantua,
the majority would
I have
not,
5 minutes for these gentlemen. Let me get to them quickly.
I mean, I always say that.
Let me go to Ishmael, then I go to
Okay.
Kujo.
So I kind of now understand why decent people, a lot of people don't want to get into politics, because I feel sorry for the finance minister. If he's done something wrong, I think let's take him on. But if he hasn't done anything wrong, don't let us do things that would make it look like he's corrupt. There were specific issues that were taken to scratch. If they didn't find any adverse findings, I think you cannot go into other areas that you haven't been asked to look into. But if those issues arose, I think there is still room for people to, if they decide to pursue it. But I'm happy I hear the finance minister is going to go to court. If there's something wrong with the SRAC thing, he needs to set that aside, otherwise he's going to hang around. But in terms of the motive of the opposition, I think they have come to understand that this government actually said they were corrupt. They threw corruption at them and then it stuck. And people believed in that. So maybe they also think that by saying that everybody is corrupt, right from the beginning, they'll have enough ammunition by 2020.
Tables have turned now, so that's what it is. Now, quickly, Kujo.
Where is an NDC man when you need one? He would have fired in the last segment of the show. Him and my brother at the other end will have been fired back and forth. You see, my point is this: much ado about nothing. There is no need going on. My brother, Mr. Jantua, came up and said that You hold a press conference to threaten a man with a sanction that you don't even have the numbers to go ahead with. That is provision is 2/3. There's no way you have 2/3. So why even hold that press conference and threaten that if he doesn't resign, he doesn't get fired, you are going to do this? You don't have the numbers.
And there's no way the majority will.
Well, it's never going to happen unless pigs fly. Let me use this opportunity to welcome back our Vice President, and may God give him a lot of rest. And he should rest more, he should eat well, and when he's sleeping, he should give himself at least 6 hours of sleep. He's a young man, he shouldn't be starving himself of good sleep and not eat. So welcome back, sir, and hope that you promised us that you can drive Formula 1. You are now giving one at the Grand Prix. Please drive it well.
Very well. I mean, we had that listed for the discussion, but unfortunately the time is, just run out, so we couldn't do that. But thank you so much for spending your Saturday morning with us. We appreciate your text messages or your WhatsApps that came through. We unfortunately couldn't read all of them, but we do appreciate them nonetheless. And thanks to the panelists, Mr. Kujun Safwa-Poku, Mr. Ishmael Ajikumhne, Mr. Kwame Jantwa, and Kofi Ameyaw. We'll be back here same time next week. Do have yourself a very good weekend and a productive week. Bye-bye.